founder of the event, the Revenue Forum, and managing director of the performance. I'm very delighted to introduce you Christophe Bataillard and Simone Porto. We're going to have a talk session with Simone and Christophe, and I will first introduce them just to let you know who they are and what they do in their job and their life and their career. Christophe Bataillard is the founder of Optimiser Consulting. He's a lecturer at ESG, Paris School Business School, Institut for Bocuse for MBA and BBA. He has a long experience in revenue management, especially for brand luxury brand in hospitality. We know each other since 2008, and well, I can say that he has the merit, or maybe the fault, of making me start my professional career in 2008, because he gave me the opportunity to start being a revenue manager for Sofitel. So I discovered that we have a common friend, that is Simone Porto. Simone Porto, I'm sure you already know about him. He's the founder of Travel Singularity. He's a lecturer, he's a writer, already wrote three books, because the last one is this one, Distribution 2050. This is the book where I discovered that we have Christophe as a common friend. Simone, want you give something, want to say something about the book?
Buy it. That's the only thing I can say.
Very good, that's good. So, he's a passionate about technology. Well, we can say that he's a futurist. I can say that there is no technology that he doesn't know. So, great job. So, sorry?
There is one technology we don't know, it's Amadeus.
Okay, very good. So, this is the speech that we are going about, the session, the talk session that we're going to speak. So, back to the future, what will be the roles of humans and what will be the roles of technology in the revenue management? I have some topic, okay, more than questions, and I would like to pose this topic to you, and you are free to talk, and you're also free to do questions. Please do questions. Because of course they are here and they are for sure happy to share with you their thoughts. Okay. So first topic is about artificial intelligence. So we are hearing a lot about artificial intelligence. It's growing a lot. The applications of artificial intelligence are everywhere. Not that much probably in the travel sector, in the hospitality. So what about hospitality? What point we are in hospitality in terms of artificial intelligence?
I think this one.
Okay.
Well, that's an interesting point, because if you think about stuff like algo trading, right? When we think about like Wall Street, at least in my mind, I got this idea of people screaming buy and sell, right? And this is what we saw in the movies in the 80s. But right now, at least in the US, 80% of trading is done algorithmically. And this means that basically of 8 out of 10 transactions are made by some kind of AI. That's pretty impressive. And we're talking about a market that, to a certain extent, is way more complicated than hospitality. Would you agree with that?
In fact, I think it's important to define what we call revenue management today. Is it only setting price into boxes, or are we trying to get the whole top line of hotel? And if you're considering only price management, that I call tactical revenue management, I believe that math, RM, and tech will be a great benefit for I'm more in the doubt if we consider strategical revenue management. Because I think that today tech can help, but cannot do the work by itself.
So can I just, what is your definition of tactical and strategic?
In fact, my thought is tactical revenue management could be a short-term revenue management in opposition with a long-term one, which is more strategic.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I think I agree. Yeah. Well, look, actually, if you take a look at what happened over the last 5 years in terms of the machine learning part and the API integration, I think we're going to the right direction. And my thought, and I know you will not agree with it, is that the problem that we have right now, and the reason why we cannot really completely automate revenue management, is because the system, RMSs, they do not have enough integration with all the other systems. And again, I know you don't fully agree, you feel there's some kind of human touch when it comes to revenue management. I doubt that.
In fact, if we talk about automation, maybe we go to...
Yes, this is the next question. Sorry. Today technology doesn't work.
This is about playing in my favor, basically.
Anyway, next question is about automation. So, for your opinion, should we go towards the complete automation of revenue management, or is not possible to do that, or it doesn't work to do that?
In fact, if we considering tactical revenue management, I believe that daily pricing, selling, and adjustments can and must be supported by tech. But does it fully automated without human validation? To be honest, I'm not sure. It depends on hotel type, eco, hotel, or deluxe. Depends on the hotel structure, with or without revenue manager. It depends also of brand marketing rules as well. But I think there's a huge potential revenue gain in using tech in price management and support the revenue line in the hotel in the hotel trade. And on top of it, it's much easier to upload price directly from RMS to the CRS than setting manually in the systems.
You know what? I think, first of all, maybe we need to define a little better what a revenue manager, what a human revenue manager does. And, I started in 99, we started before 99. And I remember when we first started doing the revenue management, and it was very early stages, at least in Italy. The job of a revenue manager was pretty much just data crunch. They were spending probably 7 out of 8 hours trying to collect data in a way that it's just unthinkable now. I remember these crazy Excel sheets, and my revenue manager was going, and this was even before meta search engines. So this guy was going from one website to the other, and sometimes the competitor didn't even have the booking edges, so the guy had to call the hotel, try to make a fake booking just to understand how much they were selling for, and it was exhausting. And this guy was 7 hours a day. It was just collecting data, and he was taking strategic decision just at the very end of the shift. And this completely changed over the last, I would say, 5-10 years. And what a revenue manager does now is basically, the data is pretty much already aggregated, and it will just take a strategic decision, and that's pretty much it, right? So, and I think this will really change. Okay. So this already changed like the way we see revenue management as a whole, and but my 2 cents are that if we can get the right data and if we can feed the systems with the right data, we can get to full automation. I would say probably in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, but in fact, I agree with you.
Is it me? Is it? Oh, it's me. I'm actually a cyborg, so that's something
I can agree with you because, in fact, currently, the revenue management system are not able to integrate external insights like new corporate accounts or digital ads campaign before seeing the first achievements on the roof. And even less, they are not able to reflect the impact of new entrants as given in your forecast. So, what you say, and I agree with you, is that yes, the revenue management system and tech can do a lot of things about aggregation, but I'm not pretty sure they are able to reflect that on the trends and on the forecast.
But then again, to me, it's a problem of lack of proper integration. And we've been talking a lot about APIs, and the problem. I was having a discussion with this guy, PMS guy, the other day, and said, look, one of the big barrier to full automation is the fact that most PMSs, they don't store the right information. So it's not even the responsibility of the RMS. The problem is that the PMS is not recording the information, right? Like, for example, and then I think there is a marketing part that is kind of ruining the automation, because it's very trendy now to say, we got an RMS or PMS that is fully integrated, open APIs, whatever. And, we can connect whatever system in 5 minutes. That's not true anyway, even the best case scenario. The problem is that the level of these integrations, the quality of these APIs is bad. And like, for example, I've seen some RMSs that are not taking into consideration room types. So like they see this spike in pickup pace, for example. They're not taking into consideration which room is, in which room the occupancy is going up. And so I think that the main problem is that, first of all, we're not feeding the right data to RMSs. And problem number 2, a lot of these tech guys, they don't necessarily come from the industry. So they learn as they go. You know what I mean?
I agree. In fact, I think all what's happened in the hotel is tracked on the PMS or the main core. And as from deals are tracked in the PMS, they could be able to be tracked into the RMS. But what I say is hotel information, hotel data is accessible through APIs or whatever. But there's a lot of things around the PMS and around the hotel happens in the station, and can be very useful to reinforce, to reinsure the observation and the forecast and so on. To feed the hotel marketing plan and a lot of things to decide direction we have to go through.
So you're talking about like external data, such as, I don't know, the piece of price.
Yeah, not only price benchmark, but maybe we can go to the limitation to just to try to fit that this
Again, I totally see what you're saying, and I think that if we look at revenue management now and probably over the next few years, I do agree with you. But again, I think that it's not a question of human touch. You know, I think it's a question of this system currently not being able to get this information. And, you know, we're in a better position than we were a few years ago.
I think some systems try to do it or start to do it. Like Libra, I know that Libra integrates some external data, but a lot of them stay hotel centric and only hotel centric.
You mean like historical data?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. I completely understand what you're saying. Again, I think the main problem is that these systems are not getting all the information. And the human touch, it has nothing to do with like creativity. It has more to do with the fact that we're trying to fill a gap, and that's a technology gap. Because now technology cannot take this data into consideration. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the break is not only technology. In fact, today, even as a system can integrate the price benchmark into the landscape they focus on. But do they integrate it in the forecast calculation or not?
What they could, that's my point. You know, the problem is not what they do now. The problem is what RMSs could be able to do in a few years, especially more and more human revenue managers start working inside RMSs company. That is pretty much what is happening. Like I know, I'm not name dropping, but I know at least a dozen of revenue managers that I've met in the last hour, and they all created a software because they know that, you know, doing revenue management on an Excel file, it's you know, suicide. So my guess is that, and this is, you know, what I'm seeing is that the more the system will become integrated, and of course there's a lot of work to be done in terms of opening APIs, quality of APIs, interaction between software, and I think we can get there. Now the big problem, and I've lived in Paris for like 8 years, so I know, and we lived in Paris, so we kind of know the tech problem in France as well. It's not, you know, it's very similar to the Italian one to a certain extent. And you know, one of the problems that we had in Italy and we do have in France is that a lot of the PMSs that we use today have been coded in the 80s, in the 90s. So a lot of this is legacy system, you know, monolithic architecture, and it's very hard to connect any kind of technology to a system like that. So I think there are people that would like to experiment a little more with AI. The only problem is that they're stuck with a piece of technology that was conceived in like best case scenario in the early 2000s. Like I'm not, like in France we got a big name, I'm not name dropping, but I know that it's a big problem.
Yeah, it is. And but as you said, there's a lot of technological innovation today, and we have to go over this innovation to feed the vision of
don't you think that RMS actually did a great evolution? Rather if we compare to the system of 10 years ago, more or less. So I remember when we were implementing Amadeus, for instance, or I remember about things. In terms of even data, type of data that they are taking at this moment, I think that they did a great job.
I think.
Do you think that this is not enough, Christophe?
From my point of view, from my point of view, it's not enough. It's not enough in terms of panel of data they integrate in their systems. For sure, I agree with you. There's
way to go, Gary. That's very appropriate. I love that.
In fact, there's a huge progress done, but I believe that we have a long way to go to.
Yeah, but again, look, I totally agree with you that this is the current situation. But I think we can get out. I think we're living really on a tech point of view, we're living on a transition moment, right? And especially, like, let me tell you, can I tell like a funny story? But it's like 60 seconds. Like during the first lockdown, if you remember, you could not pretty much go anywhere except you were going out with your dog, right? And so a client of mine had to check reservations, but he couldn't really go to the hotel because legacy system. So the only computers that were connected to the DNS were inside the hotel, right? And he told me, look, one night I just went out with the dog, secretly snuck in the hotel, took the server, and bring the server back home. And that to me was eye-opening. And this is, I think, and I always say that coronavirus did a lot of terrible stuff, but it did increase the adoption of technology by at least, I would say, 7, 8, maybe even 10 years, right? So a lot of people are starting to understand that, that crazy PMS that was built in 85 is really not the best choice. And now it will be easier to integrate with more technologies. And so on one side, I think that RMSs could do more, of course. But on the other end, I think that even the rest of the tech stack could and should do more. And but I think it's really a transition period. I think if we're having the same conversation in 5 years, this will be very different. But the thing I'm interested in, and this is, I'm not a revenue manager, you are, so I want to hear your point, is what is, in your opinion, like the human value when it comes to revenue management, if there's one today? Like, I
think today the human value is, I think the human value is around the capability to aggregate a lot of inflows, not just to read what revenue management systems show. And today, be a hotel revenue manager is not just to set forecasts. It's just also to appreciate what's happening in the market, what the trends, and to feed sales, to feed marketing departments, just to help them to get up. This is not only technical from my point of view.
I do agree with you. Look, I always say that one of the problems with revenue managers and marketers is semantic. Because at the end of the day, there are a lot of things that you do and I do that kind of overlaps.
Yeah, they are.
And like, okay, Google hotel ads on commission, that's distribution, that is more you than me. Or both, external ads. So I think one of the problems is that we still call revenue managers, and we still call marketers, and I think we should just create like a hybrid profession.
Yeah, but in fact, from my point of view, revenue managers is just a strong and data-backed marketer. And from this point of view, revenue managers can help to decide when we start to launch Google Ads campaign or the price of collection and so on and so on, and to lead sales actions, to lead sales. One of my last mission for a huge hotel in Paris, 400 rooms, was to help and to coach the director of sales.
Makes sense, makes a lot of sense.
And this is not in terms of sales techniques, it was on of taking the right decision at the right moment, based on data.
Do you think we're still working in silos? Like marketing is here, today sales is there.
Yeah, today the hotel structures work in silos, and I think the review management is much more transversal, and can help operation, of course, but also help marketing department and sales department to be better in terms of objective achievement and so on, and to target the right client, the right segment at the right moment.
It's like a project management, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, commercial.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that.
But one provocative question. Would you suggest for myself to implement a revenue management system? So
Sure.
even considering the limitations that you are.
It's better to have small data or just a bit of data than no data at all.
Yeah, on top of that, like you get rid of all the manual, repetitive work of aggregating data and check occupancy rate for the destination or your competitors. So even if you only use it as an aggregate of information, that's good. And then if you want that, and some RMSs, they only do that. They don't even give you some rate suggestion or distribution suggestion and so forth. And then of course you want to take like the highway of full or semi-full automation, you can do that. And my experience is tech stack is good, and even the company values are okay, and you understand what the company is trying to do. That's not always easy. Honestly, you can be surprised by the results. Like in my book, there is a case study that I published for a French brand, and by using an RMS, just not completely removing the human factor, but just cooperating between biological and artificial intelligence, they got an increased margin of profit margin of 4%. That for a brand is pretty aggressive. So yeah, well, I think we agree on that, right?
So I have one question, quite long, but I think that is very interesting to hear from both of you, your opinion. Every crisis teaches something. I remember the 2002 crisis after the 9/11, I remember the 2009. Now it seems we are going out from the COVID pandemic crisis, okay? What have we learned from this pandemic, from this crisis?
No, in fact, what we learned of the COVID experience is that behind price management, there's some guests. With or without possibly travel for the 2 last years, and without price consideration. The price doesn't generate the trend. So it shows us as well how our patterns can be weak. And it was a very impressive back and forth period, and obliged the hotel to be back on basic. In fact, what we did just after the lockdown is to focus on the base by segments and try to evaluate the width of each individual market, just to be able to set the right price point at the right moment. I think this could be avoided if we try to once again include in the reporting or in the revenue management system, whatever, a lot of external data once again. And I could have a long list of information that reporting and revenue management system could include. So maybe at the end of the forum, we could open a platform just to share with all the attendees what kind of information they wish to be included into the revenue management system, just to help the techno companies to build what we call the wishful thinking revenue management system.
Yeah.
I think that could be interesting. Maybe we can do that afterwards. But in fact, I think we are a bit better than before COVID, because 2 years stop of business help us to reconsider the way we drive our strategy and our television.
I think that if there's one thing that, well, of course, other than the tech adoption that I was talking about before, but I think what COVID did in terms of revenue management is that hotels started to focus a little less on rooms only, and they started to focus on everything else that they can sell. And I was having this conversation with a colleague the other day, and he said something super smart. And he said, you know what is the most stupid word in the revenue management world? And that's ancillary revenue. There is no such thing as ancillary revenue. It's BS, completely BS. If you're selling something, it's your revenue. It's not ancillary. And if you're making more money from the food and beverage, if you're making more money from the wellness or the casino or the golf, and the room is a secondary part of your revenue, it's not a big deal. And I think that before COVID, we focused too much on just selling rooms. And when nobody was buying rooms, some hotels started to go into whatever you want, total revenue management, revenue per square meter, and so forth. And I said, oh, wow, this is super smart. It's like when you go and buy a pair of sneakers or a pair of shoes, and you think that the shoelaces are ancillary. That just makes no sense at all. And so I think if COVID did something good, it was to put the perspective back that hotels are not only selling rooms, they're selling a lot of other outlets, and they are as important as rooms.
And do you think that this will stay for longer?
Yeah, sure, because a lot of hotels just started to see the opportunity, you know? And like in the US, for example, it's more. I worked with several properties in the US. It's an accepted concept, you know. Like if you do revenue management for a Las Vegas hotel, you don't care about rooms. You know, you can sell the rooms at $1. You care about the ancillary revenue that you do with the gambling. And so I think that people started to understand a little better that they can do something interesting with the space they can, and that it's not only room related. And I think this will dramatically change the way we look at revenue management. Yeah.
Well, if we talk about the limitations, to go back to the questions about limitations, probably this could be a great limitation for RMS, PMS, and so on, because at this moment, all the RMS are concentrating on the room revenue and to manage the room revenue. not the total and all the services, so composed by all the services and so on. This could be, in my opinion, a big effort that the revenue management system need to develop, need to do.
And not only from a revenue management system. I think the POS needs to open their API. It's very difficult today for a revenue management system to be connected with a lot of POS.
Look, I always say the same thing. We will not evolve as a species until we A, get rid of Excel, B, go to a word that is open API. If we don't get to that, there's no innovation.
Thank you. So, some question? Yes?
Going back to your point about ancillary bad work, etc. Do you know if there are credit card data that can be accessed that show what the consumer does when he comes to your place, or the spending they do around the staying? If this data is in some way starting to be more open on the side of the who process the payments, the credit cards company, that can be integrated maybe in a revenue process to understand the behavior around ancillary revenue, let's say, with that one word.
Well, you can actually buy, believe it or not, I can give you some websites out there if you want. You can buy a lot of data from credit cards. Like credit cards make a lot of money by selling data and behavioral data. At a property level, I would say that the main problem is the fact that, as we were saying before, a lot of the systems that properties are using work in silos. So, and this is what we're trying to do technology tech-wise, like for the last 10 years, is to create what we call the single guest provider. Okay, so it's like one single provider where we can understand exactly what the guest is doing in our property and in the properties that are related to us. So let's say you got a hotel, but you got a restaurant as well. Okay, so we can get all this information together and create like a persona and understand better what they want to buy. If they're ready to buy something, we can cross-sell, upsell, and so forth. The problem is that, at least in Italy, because this is mainly done by a CRM, right? And the statistics in Italy are quite alarming, because I think probably 15% of hotels are using CRMs. 5? Wow. And so you understand that, and I think it happened to you as well. You go to a hotel, you go eating at a restaurant, and you see the chef at the end of the shift with a piece of paper going to the receptionist, and the receptionist put the information in the DNS. Of course, this will never work. We'll never be able to upsell or sell or anticipate the needs or create the needs. It's another big part of revenue management for me is to create needs that you don't even know you had before. We are pretty far away from that. But again, it's a tech problem. Great question, by the way.
Yes?
Yes, my question is more futuristic. Do you think in the future we can have kind of RMS that fix the price for different platforms, like Booking.com, Expedia.com, and monitor your adversary and competitor in a different platform and suggest the different prices?
That's already the case. Like a lot of RMSs, they do that already. Not only that, some RMSs, for example, they can predict if a channel with a high cost per acquisition is selling too quickly and decrease the availability on that channel. Or let's say that an RMS, a good RMS, not because like a lot of what we call RMS is tracked. And a good RMS can actually understand that, let's say, June, you have an average cancellation rate of 30% on Booking.com, and what the RMSs does is to increase the inventory, selling 130% to Booking.com. You know? So, or automatically changing the stays, for example, opening and closing over commissions, accelerators. That's pretty standard for proper RMSs. So it's not the future, it's now. It's that probably a lot of the RMSs you've seen, they're not RMSs. Did I answer your question?
About this, I can suggest you that there will be a speech about cost of acquisition, profitability, net RevPAR, and so on from Basilis. That will be Leonardo, I remember at all time, because the platform he created is mainly about this, about the consideration of the cost of acquisition and giving different strategies and tactics for different channels. Okay, try to see because it's very interesting. Is there any other question? No? Okay. So, thank you very much. Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much. Thank you. There is a coffee break now outside of the corridors.